What's up, Nashville? This is Bo Beach with the Free Speech Podcast. As always, we are going to cover the biggest stories of the week in Nashville commercial real estate, culture, politics, and maybe even a little sports. I can tell you that I'm very, very worn out on politics and the state of politics in this country, so I think we'll skip that today. We'll mostly focus on commercial real estate and business today. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on all the stories we're going to cover. First, we're going to talk through Category 10, the largest entertainment complex on Broadway, a all-star duo putting together Category 10, which will most likely be shortened up to Cat10 in the local vernacular. Then we're going to talk through the best deal in the car market today. Next, we'll talk through an apartment building that was converted from motel units. This was a high-profile conversion. That property is now being relisted for sale. I'll tell you that story. I'm going to give you an update on the interest rate outlook. Interest rates, a big deal. They've been going up for a long period of time. They're starting to slowly trickle down, and now the Fed is going to announce an interest rate cut later this month. I'll give you an update on that. Next, In-N-Out Burger, a burger brand most famous on the West Coast, but also in Texas. It just broke ground on its first Tennessee location in Franklin. Is actually right by my house. I'm going to tell you that whole story. Inflation putting pressure on Nashville restaurants, and inflation putting restaurants out of business here in Nashville. I'm going to tell you that story. An active adult housing development coming to Lebanon, and it is massive. If you're unaware of what active adult means, it means housing available to persons 55 years and older. Then we'll give you a quick update on the Florida Vandy situation. And lastly, we're going to talk through BurgerFi as it enters bankruptcy court. BurgerFi is kind of near and dear to my heart. I fell in love with BurgerFi when I was living in Florida. That was a very kind of high-flying brand that has recently crashed, and I'm going to tell you that story. Those are the 9 stories we're going to cover on today's podcast. Let's get into it. Introducing Category 10, which will open this fall. Downtown Nashville's largest entertainment complex is soon to open. Country star Luke Combs and Opry Entertainment Group, an arm of Ryman Hospitality Properties, will open Category 10 this November. Quote, Cat10 is going to be a place that artists of all levels want to play in downtown. Cat10 is taking the place of what was known as Wild Horse Saloon at 122nd Avenue North. The 69,000 square foot entertainment complex will have 5 distinct experiences: the Honky Tonk, Hurricane Hall, the Still, 5 Leaf Clover Sports Bar, and the Eye. The Honky Tonk sits front and center at Category 10, offering a main stage for live music, 2 bars, and a retail shop. Hurricane Hall will host line dancing on downtown Nashville's largest dance floor and can host up to 1,500 people for ticketed concerts. The Beer Never Broke My Heart Bar and Neon Dream Bar are located here. The Still is located on the 2nd level and offers a more intimate experience for Bootleggers Fan Club, which are bourbon lovers and songwriters. The 3rd floor sports bar will have a lounge and table seats, multiple screens, and a live sports ticker for all of you gambling addicts out there. The Eye is a 7,000 square foot rooftop bar overlooking the Cumberland. Last month, it was revealed that Shania Twain is partnering with Lower Broadway bar Nashville Underground. This year, John Bon Jovi, Morgan Wallen, Lainey Wilson, and Eric Church all opened their downtown Nashville bars. I would tell you that this is the biggest celebrity branded Broadway bar to come to the market since Garth Brooks' concept. And why is that? Because Luke Combs is a superstar, but even more than that, Ryman Hospitality and Opry Entertainment Group, they are very, very sophisticated, very, very well capitalized owners. And anytime you've got that experience and capital behind you, I think you can expect something special. So I do think Category 10 is in a league all of its own, relative to the celebrity branded bars that have recently been rolled out. It's right up there with Garth Brooks' Friends in Low Places bar. So, I'm not a bar guy. I don't go to Broadway often. Perhaps that's because I haven't had a drink in 9 years. So I'm not the best guy to talk about these things, but I can tell you the real estate portion of this project is going to be very, very impressive. So look for Cat10 opening this November. It is going to be a big deal. Speaking of deals, what is the best deal in the car market today? If you had to guess, the answer is used electric vehicles, or EVs. In fact, they've been selling faster than traditional gas engine vehicles for 3 months straight. Why? Used EVs are getting cheaper, a lot cheaper. The average electric vehicle price the average used electrical vehicle price fell to about $27,000 in August, which is down 25% year over year. So if you read between the lines here, electric vehicles are not holding their value, which is great if you're someone looking to pick up a used one, not so great if you're someone that bought it new at a premium price. That's about 11% less than the average price paid for a gas vehicle and 10% less than the average price paid for a used hybrid. On top of that, the average used EV price is getting very close to reaching the tax credit eligibility threshold. Consumers will be hard-pressed to find many deals that are better than that. So, and we've talked about this before, some of the lowest cost used cars on the market today are used electric vehicles. And why is that? Well, it's a function of supply and demand, number one, but these used electric vehicles are going to soon need replacement batteries, right? And I recently met with a business that's what they do. They swap out these electric vehicle batteries, these hybrid vehicle batteries, and I was shocked by the cost to do so. We're talking about over $10,000, sometimes in the neighborhood of $15,000 just to get a new battery installed in one of these used vehicles. So there's a reason that they're less expensive. Part of that is just demand. There's not that many people that really want electric vehicles and kind of the limitations that they have. But on top of that, once you buy a used electric vehicle, you're the guy that's going to have to pay to get that battery replaced when the time comes. And it is a sticker shock when it happens. But as of right now, the best deal in the car market today is used electric vehicles. Let's keep moving. An apartment building that was converted from motel units is now listed for sale. This property is located roughly at Trinity Lane and I-65. This is a 1.6 acre property. In 2022, the owner paid $7.5 million for what had been a Days Inn hotel, and then later converted that property into what is now called Trinity Lofts, a 111 unit apartment building. The address is 1400 Brick Church Pike. Trinity Lofts features units with a mere 312 square feet and with rents starting at $8.99 per month. So that's an interesting idea, right? Only 300 square foot of total living space, but at a very low monthly cost of $8.99 per month and going up from there, right? So that's as cheap as one of these units would possibly get. I'm sure they go up from there. The owner founded Irvine, California-based Club Speed, a software company focused on businesses operating go-karting tracks, race tracks, and trampoline parks. Can you imagine what a niche product that is? A software product focused on go-karting tracks, race tracks, and trampoline parks. Club Speed was sold in 2019 to Newport Beach, California-based Navadon Capital Partners. In December of 2021, the Post reported that Metro government paid $9 million for the adjacent property. The former Al Mena Shrine Temple, into which it will relocate its Davidson County Juvenile Justice Complex. The address of that 13-acre property is 1354 Brick Church Pike. So you've got a old motel that was purchased for $7.5 million right next to the soon-to-be Davidson County Juvenile Justice Complex that was converted to 300 square foot each apartments that is now being resold, right? So not a long hold period. I'd be interested to see what the occupancy looks like at this stage of the game. I imagine it's not fully occupied. So you've got a just converted motel that's not fully occupied with 300 square foot apartments that's now hitting the market. We'll update you when this deal closes. I think this is a very interesting redevelopment, and the location being very interesting, the price point, everything going on here is very interesting, including the very short hold period for the seller here. Let's keep moving. Interest rate outlook. All eyes are on the Federal Reserve, which is widely expected to issue its first interest rate cut later this month amid a cooling labor market and reduced inflation. While rate cuts are seen as a way to unlock more liquidity in the market, including commercial real estate, one or two rate cuts aren't likely to make a huge difference ultimately in the challenges facing the sector. The average interest rate on commercial real estate loans that originated this year is 6.2%, which seems light to me. I'm not seeing very many loans getting done at 6.2%, compared to the average of 4.3% on mortgages that are about to mature. So you've got mortgages at 4.3% maturing that need to be refinanced out, and will do so best case scenario at 6.2%. That's a nearly 200 basis point difference, a gap that won't be covered by a couple of rate cuts. I'll freestyle on this a little bit for you. I would mention two things related to interest rate cuts and how it will have an effect on the commercial real estate market. Obviously, I'm an investment sales broker. I list and sell commercial real estate. So, very important topic that I'm discussing quite often with our clients. And what I tell them is there's real psychological value in an interest rate cut. That means we're kind of getting back to normal. We're finally through all of the mess that we've suffered through the last 3.5 years. So I think there's psychological value there that perhaps we're trending in the right direction. So some of these buyers are going to come off the sidelines and get back in the game. I would tell you that a bigger issue in terms of our market and the lending that's available to acquire these properties is simply the availability of financing, meaning there are buyers out there that would borrow money at today's interest rates if they could. The challenge is lenders have really stopped lending. The only folks that can borrow money right now are the folks that don't need it. So more so than a interest rate cut, what we really need is the availability of financing to get better, right? More people need to be able to go to their local bank and get the loans they want and stop getting turned down for those loans. So I think the availability of financing is more important than the actual interest rate in which that financing comes with. Nevertheless, I do think an interest rate cut is going to have significant psychological value. I'll also tell you that the fourth quarter is the most active quarter for commercial real estate sales. So as we get into the fourth quarter, plus we have an upcoming interest rate cut that's going to further juice that, I think the fourth quarter of 2024 is going to be a great quarter if you are a seller of commercial real estate. And that is how we are advising our clients at this time. In-N-Out Burger breaks ground on its corporate office and First Tennessee restaurant. In about a year from now, fans of In-N-Out Burger will be searching for 1951 Double Drive in their driving app. That is the new address of the first Tennessee In-N-Out Burger, 1951 Double Drive. That will be the Franklin address of the burger chain's first restaurant. The $126 million development will entail about 275 jobs once fully opened. Quote, "I'm so excited and just feel God's hands on this. This is going to be huge for In-N-Out," said owner and president Lindsay Snyder Ellison. "It won't be hard to find family-friendly people to hire here, so let's do this." How refreshing is that? A California-based company comes to Tennessee and is talking about how they feel God's hands on this transaction and how it won't be hard to find family-friendly people to hire here. Amen to that. I really like In-N-Out. I've never had their food. I like them as a business. I like their ownership. I like their history. In-N-Out has more than 400 locations between California and Texas. The Franklin restaurant, set to open in the fall of 2025, will be the first east of Texas. In-N-Out is planning other Nashville area restaurants in Goodlettsville, Antioch, and Lebanon. The office portion of the development is expected to open later in 2026, with the average worker making a salary of about $92,000. This project is being built on a 29-acre property, of which 11 acres will remain undeveloped initially. Now, that 29-acre, this is just farmland, basically, well-located farmland. They paid $36.1 million for that 29 acres at Goose Creek Bypass and Lewisburg Pike, adjacent to the Berry Farms development near I-65. So when that land deal closed, that was a massive, massive transaction. In-N-Out choosing Franklin for their new headquarters. Very, very big deal. I know lots of folks that came from the West Coast that think very highly of In-N-Out's food. They crave it. But more so than that, I think the people that own it and run it are very impressive people. And I'm thankful they chose Franklin for their headquarters and first restaurant. I think that's really awesome. Let's keep moving. Inflation putting Nashville restaurants out of business. Ooh. Fast casual restaurant PDK Southern Kitchen and Pantries, Bellevue location, closed earlier this year, followed by its Mount Juliet and Charlotte Avenue counterparts over the last several weeks. Quote, "We could not keep up with our pricing. When you get to a point where you are one piece of equipment breaking from creating a large mess, we just decided it was better to go ahead and try to cut our losses at this stage. We ended up having a 40% increase in cost. So where our break-even point was when we first started back in 2020, our sales would have had to increase by 40% just to break even. The increased cost of food and labor, coupled with the people being more conscious of eating out, forced the closure of PDK. Now Demos will focus on his other brand that remained successful out of the pandemic, known as Demos Restaurant. Quote, "There's just too much riding on the economy, on the elections, on everything else. You just don't know where things are going to fall. There is a restaurant recession nationwide. You're seeing more bankruptcies for restaurants in the last year than ever before, and that's both chain restaurants and small independents. It's an epidemic in its own right. Nashville has seen this firsthand over the years, including in the past year, the closing of Hawthorne, Lou, Cinema, and Bar Continental. It is going to get worse before it gets better, and I think the driving force behind that is labor. If we are all competing for the same labor at some point in time, you can't go up on menu prices anymore." If you've been listening to the podcast for any period of time, I've always warned you against getting in the business of food. It is a very, very difficult business with tight margins, bad hours, all kinds of ways for a business to fail when you get into the food and beverage business. And even the most skilled, experienced operators like this operator are choosing to get out of that business. It's just gotten too hard. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. Inflation and the unnecessary government shutdowns during the so-called pandemic really broke the backs of a lot of restaurateurs. I feel terrible for them. I really think we should treat restaurants as a public amenity. I think they should get preferential treatment to make it easier to stay in business. You know, we could argue on what that preferential treatment looks like, but if you want to have restaurants available to you, it has become very, very difficult to stay in business under the current tax regime, if you will. I mean, if we could make it easier for these folks, if the government would take less money from these people, perhaps they would have a better opportunity of staying in business. I think the inflation tax that's been imposed by the government is a tax enough on most of these businesses. You know, when you are spending more money than you bring in from taxes and covering the difference by borrowing and printing cash, that results in inflation. Inflation is a tax on everyone. So our taxes have gone up substantially over the last 3.5 years. That includes restaurants, and that is an already difficult business to be in. With that inflation tax burden on their shoulders, many of them are tapping out. We're going to talk about another one here in a minute called BurgerFi. Let's keep moving. An active adult housing development is coming to Lebanon. Again, active adult means the people that live there have to be 55 years or older. Del Webb is bringing its 4th active adult community to Middle Tennessee. Del Webb, a retirement community developer and subsidiary of home builder Pulte Group, revealed plans today for Del Webb at Barton Village, which will bring over 700 homes to Lebanon. Amenities will include an outdoor amphitheater, a dog park, a 16,000 square foot residence clubhouse, indoor and outdoor pools, pickleball, and bocce courts with a dedicated area for food truck parking for events. The 240-acre development is located on the southern portion of the 350-acre mixed-use master plan development and will offer dining, retail, offices, medical facilities, outdoor recreation, and other housing options connected to Barton Village. Residents will also have access to activity and event rooms, a group exercise studio, a grand hall ballroom, a fitness center, walking trails, and a veterans park. Quote, "We've carefully designed this community to cater to the diverse interests and lifestyles of today's 55-plus homebuyers, offering them the perfect balance of relaxation, activity, and social engagement. Del Webb at Barton Village is the latest of Del Webb's community developments. The retirement community developer opened its Southern Harmony community in Murfreesboro in 2024, along with communities in Spring Hill and in Mount Juliet." I've always been intrigued by 55 plus communities, right? I have older parents, older than 55 plus, and I've always suggested to them that an active adult community like this one would be perfect for them. What's always been interesting to me is the pushback that I get when I suggest that, right? Because older people that are no longer working have a difficult time socially, right? They get very, very lonely. You put them in a neighborhood with traditional families that are usually younger, have children, are busy, have different interests, and they really don't have anyone to socialize with. I see that in the neighborhood that I live in currently in Franklin, whereby almost every house has young children in it. And the few folks that built homes here thinking that, oh, these prices are so high, you know, they're going to be older people here, younger people with kids aren't going to be able to afford them. Well, they had a real shock when they moved in and they were just surrounded by the chaos of other people's children. In fact, one of the houses just 2 doors down from me recently put their house up for sale with the major reason for doing so is they're trying to get away from the children and get closer to like-minded people their own age. They're literally vacating the neighborhood because there's no one really in their age range to socialize with, right? So I think a lot of people make this mistake, my own parents included. I don't understand why older people don't look at these 55 plus communities. They are set up to cater to them. They're set up to provide them with social activities built in. There just seems to be some type of reluctance to making that leap and getting into one of these communities that's built especially for them. I don't know what the issue is, but I've seen it with my own eyes. So anyone out there listening that's 55 plus, no children in the home, you know, if you've kind of outgrown your neighborhood and now there's really no one there to socialize with, your tribe is somewhere else, I think it is an absolute no-brainer to be looking at these 55 plus communities. And this new community in Lebanon, you know, assuming you want to live in Lebanon, is really, really dialed in. But they do this well in Florida as well. There are a lot of 55 plus communities in Florida that do real well. You know, some of the Margaritaville resorts are 55 plus. There's one in the 30A area of Florida and the Panhandle that I've always told my parents to take a look at. This would be perfect for you. Of course, they never do. So there seems to be some type of reluctance to consider these options, but they make perfect sense to me. And if you're interested in living in the Lebanon area, you've got an empty nest, you know, check out this new Del Webb community. It looks very, very legit. I've got two more for you here. A quick one, a Florida Vandy update. So as I've updated you on in previous weeks, Vanderbilt University is going to be adding a second campus in the Palm Beach, Florida area. Vanderbilt is finalizing plans for a $520 million campus in West Palm Beach that could open in 2026. Above all else, Vanderbilt's expansion is about wealth and growth. It's this treasure trove of networking and business relationship building opportunities that Palm Beach County presents to Vanderbilt. You think about opportunities for donations, corporate investments, but the Palm Beach address brings a prestige to Vanderbilt. Given the amount of wealth and influence in Palm Beach County, pointing to its nearly 60 resident billionaires as an example. And I totally agree with this. So before we moved to Franklin, we actually moved to Palm Beach County. Not West Palm Beach, but just north of West Palm Beach, there's this beautiful community called Jupiter. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Palm Beach County, specifically Jupiter. And I understand the thinking here. I think this is a wise move on Vandy's part. I think this is going to be a very, very successful endeavor for them. And I wish them the best. And we'll keep you updated on their progress there in weeks to follow. Last story of the day. BurgerFi joins U.S. restaurant chain's march to bankruptcy court. The operator also owns Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza and has already closed 19 locations. Mind you, one of those locations is in Brentwood. It's been replaced by a Waldo's, but there was a BurgerFi in Brentwood that's recently closed. You also see BurgerFis in many of the airports in South Florida. Fort Lauderdale, Florida-based BurgerFi International, parent of its namesake Better Burger restaurants, and Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza and Wings on Wednesday filed voluntary petitions for reorganization under Chapter 11 in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court. All 144 BurgerFi International and Anthony's restaurants will remain open and continue normal operations. The Chapter 11 filing includes only the 67 corporate-owned locations of the two chains, not the franchise-owned sites. BurgerFi has now become part of the surge in restaurant Chapter 11 filings and location closing this year. The list includes Rubio's, Buca de Beppo, World of Beer, Rodi, and Tijuana Flats. Most of these chains, and now BurgerFi, have cited ongoing woes from the COVID-19 so-called pandemic closings, debt, consumers cutting back on discretionary spending, as well as soaring costs for labor and other operational expenses for their financial difficulties, right? So this is the same idea we just covered with the PDK restaurant. Yet despite the challenging macroeconomic environment, some restaurant chains have posted sales gains in the recent quarter, most notably Chipotle Mexican Grill and Shake Shack. BurgerFi, a fast casual concept, has 93 restaurants with 76 franchised and 17 corporate owned. Anthony's, a premium pizza chain, has 51 restaurants. 50 of those are corporate owned. The chain's menu is centered around cooking with a 900-degree coal-fired oven. So, the restaurant business is no joke. You know, this idea that people growing up eating at restaurants and eating at fast food places and think, oh, this is how I want to make my wealth. I want to be the owner of a restaurant, or I want to be a franchisee of a restaurant. I'm telling you, you are out of your minds. It is a difficult business to be in. There are so many elements of that business outside of your control. You've got such thin profit margins, and you're doing most of your business during times you don't want to be working, right? Nights and weekends. For a variety of reasons, you have to be an absolute madman to get into the restaurant business. Please leave your money in the bank. It is much safer there than invested in any type of restaurant concept, in my opinion. You will thank me later. That rounds out the show for today, guys. I hope we've touched upon some stories that you enjoyed. As always, the show is sponsored by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. Check us out at soldbybeechwood.com. If there's anything we can do for you, if you are a commercial real estate owner, please reach out. We'd be happy to have that conversation and help in any way we can. Until next week, have a great weekend.